What is good? Osiris here, stuck in the middle. I just had my coffee in the morning and I checked Twitter and I see this tweet from Thomas Massie. And I'm not going to be able to, do too many comments or anything. I just want to do this and upload it. Thomas Massie, about half an hour as of this recording ago, so half an hour ago, he tweeted, "We have filed a lawsuit in federal court against this woman to end the mask mandate on airplanes. Perhaps someone should sue her over her lies about the V, how many thousands of people were infected." So he's asking questions about that. And I'm not a fan of this. I like where he's going, but as a citizen, Thomas Massie is very smart. He's one of the guys that I like in Congress, but we have to hold these politicians accountable. So what's going to happen here is, in the fallout of everything, the politicians, including even ones that I somewhat like, but keep in mind, he's still a politician. I like Steve Bannon, but he's still former Goldman Sachs. He's still Steve Bannon. So I like these people. I agree with them on certain things, but that doesn't mean I know them or rock with them like that. Thomas Massie, this isn't good enough. I follow him pretty closely. I haven't heard him start where we need to start. So I'm not happy with this tweet, even though I, in a large part, agree with him overall. I replied, I said, politicians didn't have to listen to a word she said. And I know this is a collective group. Thomas Massie isn't a king. He's been on the right side of a lot of this, but I don't, what that got to do with me? You all as a legislative body failed. So I'm more upset at the politicians than the line. No, I don't want to say that. YouTube will I don't want to go against my overlords. Whatever issues that the health officials had, I'm more mad at the politicians. So the CDC reports to the Department of Health and Human Services. Department of Health and Human Services report to the president. Right now, there's people, the Freedom Convoy, to my knowledge, is still going on. And the number one thing that they're asking for is the emergency powers of the president to be removed. Representative Massie, I don't want to hear anything about the CDC right now while the president still has emergency powers. Those need to be removed. And I understand that there's debate in it, but if that doesn't happen, I don't want to hear about the CDC. I don't care. Your job as a politician is to make the case to the people, to put pressure on the representatives to say, we don't need the president to have emergency powers anymore. That's how the CDC got power. The CDC doesn't have any power unless the federal government gives them power. And that's really what Rochelle Walensky's, if you hear what she's been saying recently, she's been dropping hints like, there's been people at, governor's been kind of complaining about it too. Like, we followed you and we don't know what's going on. And she even she even said, hey, what we give y'all is a recommendation. That really caught my eye. That was an indirect political way of saying this is y'all fault. We give you all recommendations. Y'all do the policy, especially at the state level. But what happened is we gave the president, the executive branch, emergency powers. So now we have one man that controls way too much and is very much like a king, especially if the legislative branch doesn't check him. So now he's like a king, and then he can listen to one or two people like Dr. Beagle or Walensky. That's how it happened. And he still has the powers right now. So Thomas Massie, I'm not feeling this. You need to do step one. And I know it's not easy. I know it's difficult, but until that happens, I don't want to hear anything about this. There's citizens protesting right now, or last I checked. I don't see any videos of it or anything. But last I checked, they're still circling DC to say, hey, why does the president still have the executive branch still have the emergency powers? It's been over 2 years now. Everything should go through the legislative process. If you can't get it to go through that process, then it obviously wasn't that important. The money for Ukraine got through real easy. Thomas Massie was on with Tom Pool recently. Tim Pool, and I wish Luke Radowski was there because he's really better at grilling these people in a respective manner on tough things. And I liked, Massey was on there with MTG, and I liked them on there, but they never got tested. This is one of the biggest things to get tested on. Then second, before I go out here, the legislative branch, so the House and Senate, or the House by itself, could have their own scientists. The CDC is tied into the executive branch. It's basically the president's, cabinet through the Department of Health and Human Resources. Congress is their own, think of Congress as their own executive branch. I know you got a lot of people in it. That's the checks and balances, but they can do their own thing. So they could bring in their own scientists. They don't have to listen to the executive branch. That's how the system is supposed to work. Congress, from the start of the pandemic, could say, okay, CDC, you do your research. President, you do your research through the CDC. We here in the House, we have our own doctors. We have our own committee. They don't have to listen to the CDC. They're a separate branch of government. So you can't just blame. I don't want to hear from someone in the legislative branch just pointing fingers at the CDC. Y'all didn't do any studies on your own. No, literally none. Everything was run through the executive branch. You could have said, hey, we've got our own panel. We've got our own people as a branch. I know there were some one-off type things where people did some things. But as a branch, they could have said, here's our process, and we just want to see where the differences are. Like from the CDC, CDC recommends this. Oh, then our experts in the House, they actually represent this. So we don't actually agree. And then they could strip the powers from the president. They could do a lot. They're their own branch of government. So that's really all I wanted to say is in this almost accountability phase that we're trying to get into, I'm not letting you off the hook, Mr. Congressman. And I need to hear you acknowledge why that happened, because he's very smart. But remember, he's still a politician. He's still a lawyer. You can't trust these people. Let me know what you think. Take care.